Peace and greetings, family. Peace and greetings, daughters and sons of Sankofa, daughters of the diaspora, sons of diaspora. It is Goddess Queen Jamila, and I'm excited to be here with my good lighting and my stable background at the moment. Um, I'm really excited to be here because I'm talking about a subject that I really haven't seen discussed at all on YouTube, or many or other platforms. I haven't really seen people talking about it. So I want to talk about it because it's real. Today I'm talking about the wounded repatriate, the wounded repatriate. And if you like this video, please like it. Like, don't just like it in your heart. Click the like button, subscribe to my channel, share the video, tell a friend to tell a friend. The information that I post on this channel is very real. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very real because I've had a lot of experience living on the motherland. So I have been making more of a commitment to record and to share information because I have seen so much misinformation. I've seen you guys cast your support behind people who are making YouTube videos who aren't here in Africa anymore because they really weren't about this life. They were new to it, not true to it. Who aren't willing to support you, aren't willing to help you with a consultation so you can develop a real plan to get here if that's what you so desire, who have lied, who have just flat out told lies. So, yeah, let me first start by saying I have lived on the continent for the last 4 years. Let me just turn my phone off. Um, I have lived on the continent for 4 years, and I've lived in a few different places and traveled to a few different places. I lived in Gambia, I lived in Senegal, I spent some time in South Africa. I stayed for a few months in Ghana. I have been to Rwanda. I have been to Kenya. I have been to Egypt. I lived in Egypt for a short period. So, in terms of my advice is coming from someone who has been to and lived in more than one place on the continent. And that's a really big deal because I hear a lot of people talk about moving to Africa, moving to Africa. T3 in me is famous for that. Like he talks about Africa, but really he's not been anywhere other than Tanzania, which is where I live currently. So I currently live in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and I've lived here now for 2 years, over 2 years, a little over 2 years. So it's been a healthy ride. It's been a great ride, and I have appreciated all the things that Mama Africa has taught. But today we're talking about the wounded repatriate. And it's a really big deal because usually everywhere that I go, I try to connect with a community, boots on the ground, a community circle. And that would be my advice for many of you who are moving. If you're moving somewhere, before you even move, you should at least know one living, breathing person who you've had a conversation with and who would be willing to assist you. Not a YouTuber, not a social media content creator. That'll be my next video, but someone who can actually tell you where the nearest hospital is in your area, somebody who can direct you to a school for your child. And being a part of these communities is a necessary part of the steps in into moving to Africa because the society mandates it. There are there's no group of people who picks up and moves from their home country without people boots on the ground. no ethnicity, no group, not Chinese people, not Indian people, not Iraqis, not uh, people from Guinea. No one moves without having a secure community in place or something in place, a brother, a sister, someone essentially there, boots on the ground. Because things come up, things happen. And when those things happen, your community can support you, they can assist you, they can direct you, they can lend a dollar, lend a bed to sleep at night. So that's the first thing I want to just point out. It's really important to do that. Um, it's just really important to do that. So let me start by saying that. Now, I'm going to be looking at my notes, of course, because I don't want to be rambling and babbling because I can do that. And then I'll be like, I didn't even get to say what I wanted to say. Yeah, girl, because you was over here having a sideline conversation. So the first thing I will do is really just walk you through what a wounded repatriate is, and then talk about why, a little bit about why that wounded repatriate even exists, and then what your role is if you are moving, or traveling through the continent or somewhere else, maybe, and interact with one of these types of people. So, all right. So I will say that the wounded repatriate is a very unfortunate soul. They're a very unfortunate soul. One of the characteristics about them is that they think everybody is out to get them. They legitimately think everyone is out to get them. And everyone, literally Africans who are here are out to get them. Africans have ill intentions for them. Africans are gonna overcharge them, or they think because we American, blah, blah, blah. There's always some sort of skepticism. They're always wondering like what is it? They think everybody's out to get them. I've seen situations where people have come here and interacted with an African person, a person who was born here, and that person, may offer them a price, and the price may be like, let's say if it's a difference between $3 and $3.50, and they will be like, no, I'm not paying that 350. They just trying to charge me a high price because they see I'm American. They see I'm coming here from abroad. They see I'm a foreigner. And baby, they was charging their brothers and sisters that same 350. It's part of the process of bartering, more or less. Like this whole concept that someone is out to get you is like very innate to the wounded repatriate. The wounded repatriate is paranoid and thinks that everybody has ill will for them. So it's important to note that when you hear that, when you are observing someone with this constant out to get me, out to get me, out to get me thing, that you can recognize that and see that as being part of the wounded healer, essentially. But it doesn't stop there. They also think the diasporans are out to get them. They also are very skeptical of people who are also moving out of America and Canada and UK. And their level of skepticism is almost like a sort of anger/resentment. They're angry, they're resentful, they can be very snide, they can be very rude to you. Um, there was a particular situation that happened when I moved to Gambia that was just weird to me. It was weird. There was a lady there um, who she was in her late 60s, I think, maybe early 70s, but it was, I think, maybe early 70s. And her and I had met in Senegal. when we met in Senegal, she was trying to get some things done. She was at the embassy, the Senegalese embassy. Of course, they don't speak English. Like, she was just really frustrated. And I was going to get some things done so I could get to Gambia. And I happened to be with a friend who was Senegalese, and she was there by herself. Of course, completely by herself, like packed up, bought a plane ticket, packed up, and moved and just pulled up by herself with no nothing, no guide, no resources, no community, no nothing. So when I met her, she was extremely frustrated, could not speak the language, didn't know where to go, didn't know who to call, how to get there, like just crazy situation. And when I got there, of course, heard her accent, and I was like, "Oh, sis, like, you know, you're from the States." And she's like, "Yeah, and I'm trying to get this and get that, and I don't know how to get that." So I was like, "Well, we just went to get those same documents. Um, I'm about to go in for an appointment, but if you want, my friend can take you back to the same place we went so you can get this and that." And she's like, "No, like, I don't want to, be a burden or anything." I'm like, "You're not going to be a burden, you know?" So my friend was like, "Yeah, it's no problem." So he took her, I went and did the appointment. I came out, she had what she needed. And, we connected, like we just exchanged contact information. And I was like, "I'm going to Gambia." And she was like, "Me too." So I was like, "Oh, this is crazy. I'll be there." So I found myself in Gambia, maybe like a, maybe a few days later. And a few months after that, we connected and we hung out, we talked. It was all love. Like, it was just love. It was cool. It came to a certain point in the relationship where she was transitioning out of her house and I was going to be transitioning into her house. And she had offered to let my daughter come before I transitioned and before she left the house. It was like, the extra room is here. She can start to come and sleep here and etc. So I said, okay. Um, so the first night my daughter came or was trying to come, she was coming like late, like it was late in the evening. And with her coming so late, um, this woman, her name is Sherry. Sherry was like, you know, it's like way too late. Like, I'm already going to bed. And I understood that. So I was like, listen, don't bother to go over there. It's too late. So my daughter was like, okay. Over the next week, things just got really, really weird. The person that I was going to be paying as a landlord, when she connected me with them, they were just really weird and like just really weird towards me, and I didn't appreciate that. And I let them know, like, I don't like this energy. I'm not feeling this. And then I had this group, and Sherry was a part of my group, and I would share things like my YouTube, my podcast, and she would see it, I guess click and listen or whatever. And at the end of the week, this is over in a week's time. By the end of the week, she had packed up and moved to her new place. And I was planning on leaving Gambia about a month after that. I was only going to be in her old place for a month. And then I'd pack up and move on. I think we were going to go to Ghana. And I said to her, would it be okay if we left some of our stuff? Like, you have a 6-bedroom house. She was planning on bringing her mom there to live with her and her grandson. So I was like, would it be okay if we rented a room and put some of our stuff there for storage? Because we're going to be back in Gambia. And, I just want to make sure we have something, we don't come back to nothing. And she's like, oh, no problem. So things progress. I reached out to her. Did you get settled in? Is everything good? And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm settled in. All is well. And then she proceeds to say, but you and your daughter are not allowed to come over my house. And you're not welcome over here. And it was a bit strange. And I was like, okay. Because again, y'all, this is a 70-something-year-old woman. So the way I grew up is I learned that people like this are elders, which would dictate a level of maturity, right? But very like flippant, very, it ain't nothing to cut that off. Y'all not welcome up here. So I was like, okay. So then maybe a day or so went by, and my husband was like, why don't you ask her? At this time, him and I were dating. Why don't you ask her what her problem is? Like, what's the issue? So I was like, okay, let me ask. So I asked, is there something wrong? And then she proceeded to give a list of these same things that I just mentioned. Oh, your daughter tried to come over to my house late. Um, I don't like your podcast. You didn't like you didn't like the the landlord. Um, and it just feels like, you're something like we're not in the same tribe or something like that. And yeah, that didn't make any sense to me. It didn't have it didn't have any logic in it. Like, that's the reason why, honey, wounded repatriate, wounded repatriate. And if that wasn't enough, this woman went on to bring her mother to Gambia and, had her mother there celebrating the fact that she brought her 90-year-old mother to Africa and etc. Only to, from what I've heard, kick her mother out of the house. They fell out and they weren't able to get along or something. And she kicked her out. And when I was telling her, like, I'm going to Ghana, it was kind of like, forget Ghana. Now, Sherry's in Ghana. Wounded repatriates will have you looking like this. Like, what? That shit don't even make no sense. It don't even make any sense. Like, their actions don't really have a lot of logic in them. They're emotionally based because the problems that they have with you aren't really problems with you. They're problems with their granddaughter from 10 years ago or their cousin from 3 years ago or from their niece or from their brother or their ex-husband or their mama, or their big sister or their big brother. Their problems are problems that come from old, deep wounds. It is what it is. They're easily triggered. So that's another characteristic. They're easily triggered. They're easily triggered. You don't have to say much to them. You don't have to say much. It doesn't have to be you doing anything actually wrong. None of those are a requirement. They're just easily triggered. They're walking on eggshells with their heart because they're wounded. They're wounded. They're hurt. They're bruised. They're beat up. When you see a repatriate living in Africa, I need you to remember that there is 100% chance that there was some PTSD and scarring that came along with their experience in coming to the continent. It's just part of it. A lot of times you see people pack up bags full of wounds, pack up bags full of hurts. They bring their baggage with them, and their bags are full of old trauma. It's full of old stuff. It's full of the things that happened to them. It's full of the things that people did. It's full of hurt. And they pack up their stuff and they bring it. They don't have anything else to pack. They're not healthy. They're not healed. And what was so odd to me in learning this over and over and over again and seeing this over and over and over again is now knowing that most people don't do healing work in the States. Like the majority of people that you meet in this on this continent have not done deep self-healing, deep work in the States. They've not done their work. They're not doing the work in the States. They're not looking at themselves and figuring out what hurts. Like people treat trauma like the invisible elephant in the room. They treat trauma like it doesn't really exist. When things happen, they just kind of move on and act like, okay, I got in a car accident. Let me move on. Like, but you need to go to the chiropractor. You need to go to the doctor. You need a massage therapist. Your body is in a tense situation. You might have altered different bones. No, I'm good. Let's move on. I'm okay. I had some pain, but I didn't want to go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the ambulance. They ain't gonna do nothing anyways. That's not it. That actually is not it. So they're very triggered, easily triggered, and very sensitive. Very, very sensitive in a way that does not make actual logical sense. Someone can say something to them, they're looking deeply into it. You know, this is why are they saying this? What is the cause of this? Why did you say that? Um, like I said, if everyone is out to get you, then who can you trust? Everyone's out to get you. I was also in Gambia renting a place before moving to Sherry's place. And this place that I was renting was being rented out by a lady named Diamond. And this particular woman had moved from, I think, Alabama or something, and had a house that she was renting. And while I was there, um, there were two rooms available. And I was like, okay, initially I was like, maybe I'll rent both for me and my daughter. But my daughter was in Senegal at the time. So I was like, I don't know, but maybe she'll come here and yeah, maybe she'll come here and I'll rent two rooms. She ended up not coming initially, so I was like, I don't think I need it. Like, I don't think I think I'm good. And so I rented my room. Now, this house, in this house, there was me and there was another housemate who also was renting a room. And then there was a cleaner who would come. So when I pulled up in Gambia and I rented, my then boyfriend, now husband, was there with me every day. Like it was him and I, and we were there every day. And then my daughter came to visit at the house. And when she came to visit, I want to say she slept on the couch for a night maybe, but then the other day she was at her friend's house in Gambia as well. So she went and stayed at her friend's house. So I get a message because this lady Diamond was abroad, she wasn't there. I get a message with her saying like, you need to pack up your stuff and leave my house, and you know you got three people staying. You took over the second bedroom. Like, that's not what I want for my house. And you're just doing what you want to do. And this is my house. And I'm like, the the rule of thumb as a professional is if if I think something and I'm not there, I'm gonna call and confirm it. Is that not what you all do? That's what I learned as a professional. If I'm a businesswoman, if I'm a business person and I have tenants, before I call and make accusations, I'm going to call and say, hey, so this is what I'm hearing, what's going on. I'm a healed businesswoman. I'm a healthy businesswoman. An unhealed or toxic or wounded person is automatically going to jump on a bandwagon and fly off a handle. That's immature. There's nothing spiritual. Like, there's so many people on this, oh, I'm on a spiritual journey in my third eye and this and that. But girl, is it clouded? Like, is your stuff working? Because that's not healthy or healed. There's nothing. What are you doing? Wounded repatriate. Like, this lady had heard from her housekeeper Fatu that or created a story. Fatu said something, and Fatu was being messy. Like, Fatu was being messy as fuck. She was being a messy bitch. And her lying and saying that my daughter was living there, like, there's no reason for her to lie, but she chose to lie. And then the lady chose to believe her. Diamond chose to jump on a bandwagon and ride that off into the sunset. And it's another testament and testimony of somebody being wounded. Somebody wounded people do that because guess what? Everybody's out to get them. There's no conversation. There's no, hey, sis, let me just clarify with you. You know, this is what I like, or this is what I'm hearing. Can you elaborate? Can you provide some clarification? Is that too much to ask for? Messy. But wounded people are messy. Because when you're wounded, your blood is dripping all over everybody. It's dripping. So it's a little bit messy. So yeah, very triggered, very sensitive. A lot of wounded repatriates are isolated. That's another thing. They're isolated, super isolated. There's this narrative that they'll even say, like, I don't fuck with locals. I mean, I don't fuck with diasporans. I only fuck with locals. You know, I be around locals. It's a badge of honor. Now I be around locals. I'm around local people who essentially don't give a fuck about them. Let's be real. Local people have their own motives. Local people gonna look out for their family. They're gonna look out for their friends. They're gonna look out for their community, for their tribe, for whatever whoever they have actual allegiance to. But very often these people will come from the West and come over to Africa and then pledge allegiance to people who they don't know, they've never met before, they just met, and who ultimately have their own motives. They're very isolated. Sometimes the isolation can come in terms of where they live. They may come, but they live far out, or come, but you barely see them. They don't really mingle. They don't really mix. They don't really spend much time with others. Um, a lot of the men may live far out and like I said, do the intermittent pop-ups. A lot of the women come and they isolate themselves from the community, but they may find themselves in some sort of sexual relationship or sexual interaction. So they get wrapped up in a man, wrapped up in a foreign man, you know, thinking that he's the best thing that ever happened to them. And, you know, find themselves in really precarious situations as a result because they kind of jump headfirst into whatever. And so that's a video for I'm going to do a whole video on that because there's a lot of observations that I've made when it comes to Black women, repatriates, dating men, boots on the ground, and just a lot of things that I've observed from that. Yeah. So that's a different thing. But they're very isolated and their mentality is very individualistic. The wounded repatriate is very individualistic, very Western, very Western, very Western. Um, the West raised them. The West has raised them, and you can see that. You can see the struggle with even digesting community, even relinquishing anything to community. It's me, myself, and I came here and I'm with my, child, or I'm with my husband, or I'm with my mom, or I'm with my daughter, or I'm with my cousin, and it's us, or I'm by myself and it's just me, and I'm gonna figure it out, and I don't need anyone's help. Mm, it's me, myself, and I. Very, very self-centered, very isolated, very do not come around me. Very, you on your own, I'm on my own. I'm on my own. You're on your own. Don't call me for help. It's crazy at the level of Western influence that you find with with repatriates. It's crazy, that level of Western influence. It's crazy to see it play out because it's very real. And it's wild. It's like, wow, how can people be that isolated? And let me clarify, there is a difference between being isolated and being individualistic. I've noticed that isolated people are usually isolated because they're actually in a healing incubator. They may not know it, but they're in a healing incubator, and it requires for them to be alone. Again, wounded repatriates, many repatriates, 100% of us are coming over here with some form of PTSD in some way, shape, form, or capacity. Even if you're functioning on 40%, there's a 60% that you have to regain and piece those things together. Um, Even functioning at 90%, I still had to re-up the rest of that 10% and heal so I can be a whole person. So isolated is different from individualistic. Individualistic is, I yeah, I heard about, the sister over there who was dying at the hospital, but that ain't got nothing to do with me. That ain't got nothing to do with me. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's weird, is what it is. It's weird because whether you like it or not, you're still part of the community because you're still classified as being part of this group based off of where you're from. And that's what it is for everybody. An Indian person is classified along with Indians because they came from that place. It's where they're from. It's not brain science, it's not rocket science, it's not anything extra. It's just simply you're part of this group. Just like I'm classified as being a woman because I was born a woman. I was born with a vagina. That marks me as a female. So yeah, individualistic and isolated, very Western. And if you look closely, you'll realize that they are fighting for their lives. A lot of times, wounded repatriates are fighting a good fight. It could be an emotional fight, mental fight, psychological fight, spiritual warfare. Whew, Lord, they are fighting for their lives. Okay, many of them. Whatever they lost or whatever they never had when they were living in the States, it's something that their soul, their spirit wants to have and wants to regain. And it's a fight because there's so many things blocking that thing. Their self is here, their wounded self is there, and there's so many things in between it. They're fighting for their lives to get to themselves. It's crazy, but it's important for you to know that so you don't take their stuff personally. So you don't take their stuff on. Okay. We're going to talk about that a little bit more too, but you got to remember that it's not your job. For those of you who are healers, because we're talking about somebody wounded. So let me just mention for my healers, it's important for you not to take people's stuff on. It's important for you not to be Captain Save a How. You know what I'm talking about. You ain't got to make that your your plight. You did not pack your bags and travel 100,000 miles all the way over here for that. Um, yeah, a lot of these people are low vibrational. They're low vibrational, like I said, because of that toxicity, PTSD, those wounds. And you see that low vibrational effect take place in their relationships, um, in the drama that surrounds them and the people around them. You just see it. The situations that will happen to someone who is a wounded repatriate, those type of situations aren't happening to everybody. They're not happening to everybody. Everybody's not going through that. Everybody's not going through that. Um, just recalling over some of the places that I've been and some of the things that I've seen people in Gambia come over with that toxicity, with that low vibrational energy, and fights going back and forth between people and drama on YouTube. I've seen people come over with low vibrational energy and PTSD, and now they're saying negative things about the country that they're in while still living there. And that harnesses a different type of energy that makes it unsafe. You're not safe if you're going to talk about somebody's mama while you in that person's house. And remember, this is the motherland, and every single country is still somebody's mother. And if you go sit up here and talk about somebody's mama while you in somebody's mama house, you are preparing yourself to get your ass beat. I see a lot of you all encouraging these YouTubers and, oh, thank you for telling the truth. Do not tell them to do that while they're in that place. They need to get up out of there before they start spilling the beans. And, come on now. These NDAs are invisible, but they apply while you're in that country. Get out of the country and then say what you want to say. Look at what happened with Art Cappy. Art Cappy was in Gambia talking cash money, taking over for the 992,000, and she had to get the fuck on. And now, and this is what I'll say: people don't understand. Energy is just energy. It's just energy. It's just energy. All these things that we are seeing happening in Gambia with Western repatriates not being safe, because we don't see this happening with white people coming from Britain, because white folks love to be over in some Gambia. Okay, coming from Europe. No, it's happening with Black Westerners. Why? Because of the energy that Black Westerners came over there with. There was a lot of negative, toxic energy that was swirling around Gambia, swirling in, up, and through Gambia after the pandemic started, and our Kathy was online telling people, come on over here, come on over here, come on over here. And she herself toxic, she herself disgusting, she herself gross, she herself being unhealed, calling Black women bitches and hoes, talking about Black women are nasty. She did so much damage. And then you attract and you're pulling in other damaged energies. And in the midst of that, and then she was another wounded repatriate. She didn't go outside. She wasn't in the community. I was living in Gambia. She wasn't in the community. She wasn't giving back. She wasn't contributing anything. She was just there, eating up the food, talking about this and that. And then when she saw the other side of Gambia, went on a campaign to drag Gambia through the dirt. And it was like, this is surreal. Who does this? You in somebody's house. You can't operate like that. So she had to get her ass out. But what you all don't understand is all these deaths, this is energetic. This is energetic. This is energy. There was a lot of damage done in Gambia by wounded repatriates. A lot of damage done to the people, a lot of damage done to the land, a lot of damage done in terms of slander, a lot of theft. There was a lot of damage done. I tell people all the time that the most toxic repatriates that I have ever met in my entire life have been in Gambia and Senegal, the most toxic, the most toxic. And my theory is it's because of where these countries are situated. These countries are situated right on the corner. I can use this as a map, right here. Okay. So because they're situated like at the basically like the first point that you can land on and drop in on in 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 Africa, like if you're coming from here, this is the first point that you can trying to look at it on the on the screen. So yeah, if you're coming from here, this and so the states are over here, right? This is the first, and Canada. This is the first point that you can touch. Like, I think about it like someone who is escaping. These are wounded escapees. And when they're escaping, they're like just trying to, they're swimming, 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 they're battling the sharks and battling the waters and surviving and just trying to get to Africa. And then as they're getting over here, this is the first place that they make it to. And when they make it there, they're just like, oh, oh God. Like they're exhausted. They're exhausted and they're like, I don't even want to spend time, going anywhere else. Like I don't want to I don't want to spend time going further in. I don't want to go down. Listen, I just got here. Let me just drop my bags. I don't even have no bags no more. Let me just give me some time. I'll just be here. It is what it is. I'll just be here. That was Gambia and Senegal. That was Senegal and Gambia. The most toxic repatriates I have ever interacted with in my entire like it's not so common for people to populate this side. East Africa is not really a big like we didn't really people weren't like, oh, when I grow up I want to go to Rwanda and live there. That wasn't it. East Africa is not a really big destination for most people. Most people only found out about Tanzania because it was open during the pandemic. But places like Uganda, Ethiopia, Malawi, um, Mozambique, not really. Not really. That's not a big Madagascar. Madagascar, we know about Madagascar based off the movie. But people weren't like, oh yeah, when I grow up, I want to move to Madagascar. No. No. Seychelles, Comoros, Mafia. No. So yeah, there's a level of toxicity that was swirling. And at a certain point, you just gotta be willing to look at the writing on the wall and see things for what they are. You gotta be willing to look at the writing on the wall and see things for what they are. The Lebanese been in Gambia for a while, starting businesses, doing this and that, and they have not had these instances of killings and deaths and a lot of times too, the energy is fed by the energy when people are, oh yes, and Gambia is not safe, and Gambia is not safe. It's again energy. You're feeding it. You all are afraid to even think about your problems in fear that they will manifest more problems. So why would you not use that same principle with feeding energy about something negative, like death? You're feeding the energy, jumping on the bandwagon, feeding the energy, and that begets more of that same energy. So it's a very sad story. Like I said, the repatriates in Senegal, even more toxic. Oh God, even more toxic. And a lot of the toxicity is really just it's circulated. It's like spewed in between the community, inside of the community. RJ Mahdi or whoever that is in Senegal, scamming people and stealing people's hard-earned money. And Senegal is such a hard case to understand too, because the wounded repatriate there is so wounded that they are willing to live in a country where they don't speak the language. French is the official language of Senegal, but the real language is Wolof. And these wounded repatriates are not speaking either one. One of the big criterion for me in the place that I wanted to live is I need to live in a place where I can at least greet my neighbor, where I can at least say, "Hi, neighbor, how are you? How's your family? How's your mom? How's your kids? Hey, neighbor, I'm stepping out of my house. Can you watch, my house? I'm going to be gone, for a day. Can you just keep an eye out on my son? Hey, neighbor, I heard something. Is everything okay?" Like, I need to be able to communicate with my neighbors. Y'all, I'm really community oriented. I'm really community oriented. I grew up in a physical community in Decatur, Lithonia, Georgia, and baby, we look out for each other. We look out for one another. I grew up watching my mama drop a bag of apples at our neighbor's house because she got extra food from the church. Okay. Or we grew up stopping by people's house after church to eat without invitation, just because that's family, that's our community. People say, "No, I'm not even opening my house. If you pull up and you don't let me know I'm not opening my house," I understand the courtesy, but I'm just telling you the type of place I grew up, the type of life I grew up living. So much of me being in Africa is me recreating that to a large extent. Being able to call my sister and say, "Hey girl, like, can you get me some greens when you go to the store?" And my greens are there, it's over there waiting on me. Or call another sister and say, "Hey, let's do Sunday dinner." And she say, "Okay, you want me to make some cabbage? You want me to make some macaroni and cheese?" That is that's a high quality of life for me. My community, my sisterhood, my brothers, that's a high quality of life. Okay. Um, yeah, but these wounded repatriates come over here thinking everybody's out to get them. They're fighting for their lives. They're fighting in for their lives. They are wounded, so they're not spiritually whole. Their intuition isn't intuitioning in that way. And even when intuition is saying something, like in the case with Kavisha, that situation with Kavisha, let me just say for all who are watching and for the record, that situation was F up. And regardless of what I have to say about Kavisha, regardless of all that, the reality is that she was not wrong in asserting that those people over there are absolutely crazy. They're covert. They are bad mind people. They lack integrity. Zanzibar is a place where people are eating off of tourism, and that energy is not balanced by fairness, by by wholeness, by integrity, by righteousness. It's not balanced by that at all. I've never been to Bali, but I've heard that in Bali, places like that, there's a high level of understanding of the balance in life and the contribution morally and otherwise. But Zanzibar is not that type of place. Okay. That energy over there, if you go over there and start sniffing around, or if you go over there with negative energy, that negative energy will find you so quickly. It will find you so quickly. It's like putting on a spray, but the spray that you're spraying is bringing all the negative to you. It's gross. Very dark energy. Very dark energy. And I give thanks and praise that I have never had to fight or contend with that type of energy over there because, baby, I will annihilate. I'm not playing them type of games. But at any rate, Kavisha is wounded. She is also a wounded repatriate. This is a woman who went to Ghana, talked so much stuff about Ghana, turned up, Ghana this, Ghana that, Ghana this, Ghana that, Ghana this, Ghana that. Whether it's truth or not has nothing to do with the fact that it's not everybody's experience. And why are these things happening to you? So now it's not, and went to Ethiopia, get me out of Ethiopia. I can't be here. Forget Ethiopia. Okay, girl. Now you come over to Tanzania. I had already talked to Kavisha online, on email. We had already emailed back and forth. But I didn't know she was coming to Tanzania. I could have told her about the dark energy before, but she said, according to her own mouth, she said, I had a feeling, I had a feeling, I had a feeling, I had a feeling, and my third eye, and my senses, and my this and my that. You had a feeling and you still went there anyways. So you versus you, and you not trusting you. Wounded, repatriate. Wounded, wounded. Because part of the repat journey is listening to your ancestors and listening to the guidance that's telling you which African country to go to and which country not to go to. Part of that is the listening portion. Many of us who are here would say, I was guided here, I was led here, I was brought here. Many of us would describe our journeys that way, as that there being some sort of divine uh, leadership or divine guidance, some sort of ancestral guidance, some sort of spiritual guidance that brought us here. This repatriate journey is a spiritual journey. It is a spiritual journey. So meeting a repatriate, a wounded repatriate, is meeting someone who is on the journey, but not really adhering to the lessons that the journey is offering and teaching, not really tuned in and listening. And then still dealing with some level of isolation and lack of community involvement. What you got? What you doing? What are you doing? And let's be clear, I'm not blaming, I would never blame a Black woman who's been put in harm's way by a robber and a thief who chooses to end or beat that MF, beat that motherfucker up. I would never blame any Black woman for protecting herself, protecting her family, defending herself. Baby, protect Black women. She had every right to do what she did. Let the record reflect that Goddess Queen Jamila is on the side of Kavisha Drew when it comes to her and the way that she responded to finding someone in her room at 3 a.m. And it doesn't change the fact that she too is a wounded repatriate. Because at the end of the day, okay, fine. Everywhere you go, it's drama. It's you. It's still you. And so that means that there are a lot of lessons to learn. And the sad part is that in the midst of having to learn those lessons, what's happening is you're re-traumatizing yourself. So I've seen a lot of wounded repatriates come to the continent and find themselves in really terrible positions to the extent that they are homeless, dealing with medical issues, life support. What's going on? Let's keep in mind that many of these issues, you don't really hear much of them happening in places like Botswana, in places like Angola. You don't really hear about this type of stuff in Angola. There's the same kind of culprits. You don't even hear about this happening in South Africa. It's the same kind of culprits. It's the same kind of places where the energy is higher, the toxicity level is higher, and um, there's so many wounded peoples. There's so many wounded peoples. Um, you just hear about these types of things taking place there. It's very sad. It's very sad. There are some things I want you to know about healing in Africa. I have a whole video about healing in Africa that I made in 2021. I had only been on the continent for 6 months. No, about a year. And I had been observing. I was just observing. There's some things that you should know about healing in Africa. It takes about 2 years to really decompress. Okay, like really 2 years to really just decompress. I think I talked about it with my son. When my son came here, I compared him to a frozen food that was put in the deep freezer, and then it takes some time for him to thaw out. It takes time for people to thaw out. When you see a wounded repatriate, you may not need to approach them head on, like, hey, sis, they're not there yet. Give them some time to thaw out. Give them some time to thaw out. They're physically they're present, but psychologically they may still be living in that war of where they came from. They still may be living in the PTSD shadow of what has happened over the years. So they need some time. Okay? So give them space, essentially. Give them space. Okay? If you yourself are the wounded repatriate, take some space. Isolation is a part of the process of stabilizing people, withdrawing from society. When you see people going to rehab, they have to withdraw from society. They have to go off, be in a place that's peaceful, be in a place that's calm, and isolate. There's isolation. Be with your thoughts, be with your body, be with yourself. Be with yourself. So that's a big part of it. Um, recognizing that these people who are operating in their wounds aren't even self-aware. They're not self-aware. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Amina, is a tantric goddess and has been living in the Central Americas. And she flat out described those living in Costa Rica as broke. I asked her, what is the repat community like over there, the expat community? She was like, they're broke. Not just economically, but like broken people. And the thing to remember is that moving outside of your home country is a very big move. It's a very big move because very often it's hard to heal in the same environments that beat your ass and raped you and assaulted you and neglected you. It's hard to heal in that type of stuff. So it's a very big move. And yet other moves have to come behind it. It's not just you moved and then that's it, but now you moved and you gotta do, there's more steps. Just coming to Africa itself, it's not gonna heal you. It's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna heal you. If you come to your mother's house because you're sick, that's great. You came to mama's house. But mama's house alone isn't it. If you're rejecting mama's medicine, if mama trying to talk to you, you got an attitude. You're not trying to hear what mama's saying to you. You raising your voice. Oh, mama, I'm trying to hear all that. Like, I ain't come here for all that. You did not come here for all that. What did you come here for? With your sick, broke ass. What did you come here for? Make it make sense. Regardless of what your thoughts may be, don't ever forget that every single land in this entire earth is someone's motherland. It's someone's motherland. It's someone's mom. It's someone's mom. And you should treat that accordingly. You should treat it accordingly. And if that house doesn't work for you, you don't like that mama, move on to another house, but don't trash her house. You trashing her house as a wounded person, meaning that it means that the next person who comes may reap the repercussions. Because those siblings in the house are going to be like, that person came from Canada. And so, remember that last one who came from? She from Canada too. I'm finna go strangle her in the middle of the night. What? But it's the reality. Look at all the stuff that's happening in Gambia now. Look at all the stuff that's happening in Gambia. All the toxicity that they came to mama's table, they smeared shit all over the table. They smeared shit on mama's table. They smeared shit on the walls, and shit on the ground. Came over there and raped people's daughters. Came over there and stole lands, manipulated people's sons. Now what? Now what? You think shit sweet? There's an energy that is present there. And again, this is not me justifying any of it. This is just me seeing it for what it is and understanding it. Understanding it. Okay. And so, like I said, if you meet a wounded repatriate, just know you can't save them from themselves. Just like anybody who's wounded, you can't save them from themselves. If you want to help, then you need to give them space. And if you've met them and you are observing this and you are watching my video, then this is your sign to move accordingly. Move according to what you know now. When you know better, you got to do better. You got to do better. Okay. So that means don't put your hands up. Oh, whatever you on your own. Like, no, but give some space, but stay connected. They over there, okay. Sis, how you doing? You good? And check on you. There's love there. There should be love there. That person's a part of your community still. Community ethics 101. This person is a part of your community. So there's a general amount of community love for you. Sis, you good? Bro, you good? You all right? Give thanks and praise. That's it. Y'all got water over there? I saw the water cut out. Y'all got water? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. We give thanks and praise. Oh, they ask you, oh, how did you get? Okay, this is how I got that. You can go on up the street and go, yes, give thanks. You don't have to go in there and personally take their newborn baby because you see they off some stuff. No, you don't have to do all that. And you don't have to get involved in their shenanigans. You don't have to get involved because you're ultimately on your own journey as well. You're ultimately healing as well. But I just wanted to come and to give you some of the basic things to know and look for when it comes to a wounded repatriate. These are the basic things to know and look for when it comes to a wounded repatriate. If you are a woman in the diaspora and you would like to join my WhatsApp group, then by all means, send me a message. I'm going to put a link in my description box to send a message, and you can join our Daughters of the Diaspora group. So happy that you joined today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and share with your friends. This is Goddess Queen Jamila, and I'll see you next time.